Captain Eustass Kid. I know. Boo! Boo! Get him off the stage! A majority of people don't like Kid or even care for him. But that doesn't change the fact that a lot of people believe that he is still alive and will show up somewhere someday in the future. To confirm this, I even held a poll in regards to Eustass Kid, and it resulted with 62% of the voters believing that he is still alive, 24% are undecided on his fate, and lastly, only 13% actually believe that he is dead. So, with such a high number of people believing in Kid's comeback, I decided to play with the theory as to how he could come back and how Oda could make it goofy yet meaningful. Eustass is resilient. Even though most people wouldn't like to admit it, he's almost as stubborn as Luffy. Even though Shanks really nailed him down, he'll get back up. The real question becomes, how? Kid is a Devil Fruit user. Killer is a Smile user. So them being dunked into the waters of Elbaf should be a death sentence, especially when you add in the fact that they are both unconscious as well. Maybe his crew could have pulled them out of the water, but what if they're also all knocked out by Shanks's, Dory, and Brogy's Wombo combo attack? Originally, well, more like 3 months ago, I talked about the idea that the Giants of Elbaf would save Kid and his crew simply because of his feat of taking down Big Mom alongside Law. While Dory and Brogy knocked him out despite this, it doesn't change the sentiment that the Giants as a whole disliked Big Mom a lot. So maybe there are some Giant Kid sympathizers out there that would stick their necks out for him. I still think that could be a plot point that would pay off sometime in the future. Other than that route, I also played with the idea that maybe Law and Beppo could have saved Kid, since Beppo was last seen swimming underwater away from Winter's Island with Law. When he fled, the nearest log post coordinates should still be pointing at Elbaf, just like how during the Straw Hat's departure from Egghead, Nami's log pose was pointing at Elbaf as well. So perhaps Law and Beppo stumbled upon Kid's crew in their search for safety and land. I mean, hell, we did see that during the Vegapunk message, Beppo did end up finding dry land eventually. Them making an appearance here on Elbaf could be quite fitting, since they are another set of characters that would be hailed as heroes for their efforts in taking down Big Mom. So, those ideas are the ones I spouted out months ago. My new idea today is a little bit more wacky, because I want to propose the theory that Kid, alongside his entire crew, were eaten by a giant fish. Yep, that's right. Captain Kid, quite literally, could have gotten the Gluck Gluck 9000 by an Elbafian fish. In chapter 1126, when Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, and the Thousand Sunny go missing, Robin's first assumption is that the crew was eaten by a giant fish. Of course, Robin's guess is wrong, and is supposed to be a joke, but Frankie could actually envision this scenario, since his response was, "The fish here are so massive that just might be true." With that being the case, maybe Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei actually do go underwater and look for their missing crewmates. One thing's for sure though, and that's that they aren't going to Elbaf until they find him. At least, that's what one of the Giants literally says verbatim in response to this scenario. And once they go deep sea fishing for their crew, who could they potentially find? Captain Kid and the Kid Pirates. So back when Kid's group first arrived in Elbaf territory in chapter 1071, literally, the very first thing they talked about was how big the fish of Elbaf are. This shared fish sentiment between them and our current group of Straw Hats could be what links them together. As far as how Kid and company could survive being eaten by a giant fish, well, maybe there's a ridiculous amount of air inside of the fish, like a giant air pocket. Yeah, this is something we definitely need to stretch our imaginations for, but it's not exactly something un-One Piece-like. We've seen instances before where the Straw Hats have been vored by giant animals and survived. A few prime examples would be with Laboon swallowing the Going Merry, and then there's Nola from Skypiea who swallowed Luffy whole. While both of these events were oddball cases, with Laboon having heavily modified insides and Nola literally housing ruins in its stomach, it still happened. So perhaps something similar could be happening with Kid's group. What I find funny about this setup is that the Kid Pirates fit the criteria of what the Straw Hats are looking for. If Jinbei uses his fisherman tongue and talks to the giant fish of Elbaf and inquires about his missing crewmates, then what would the fish respond with? Blub blub blub. Oh, a missing pirate crew? A pirate captain, a swordsman, and others alongside a ship? Yeah, we ate them just a while ago, blub. Since they're friends of yours, you can have them back, brother Jinbei, blub blub blub. And in return, we'd end up with an awkward yet silly scenario where we find the Kid Pirates instead of our beloved Straw Hat crew. I think this is a key reason why Oda split the Straw Hats the way he did. Not only do we get to rejoice in a bit of nostalgia with the Alabasta 6's adventure in Elbaf, but Robin's dark humor alongside Frankie and Brooke's panic could lead them down this very specific road where they capitalize on one of Jinbei's unique abilities. It would give Jinbei, the newest member of the crew, a chance to flex what fishmen are capable of. What's cool about this idea is that if you're a fan of parallels, then this could fit the thematic of Kid being adjacent to Luffy. Back during Onigashima, Luffy was defeated by a Yonko and was sent barreling into the sea. There was no hope of survival until the Heart Pirates heard his call from below, showed up, and rescued him. This could mirror that with Jinbei and the Straw Hats hearing the chitter-chatter of fish and going down to save Kid. In both of these scenarios, the captains of the helpful crews are not present since Law was on Onigashima at the time, and currently Luffy is on Elbaf. The second parallel would be with the Island Eater. When the Straw Hats were leaving Little Garden, Dory and Brogy debuted their Hakoku sovereignty and blasted the giant goldfish before it could swallow the Going Merry whole. In Kid's case, Dory and Brogy used Hakoku sovereignty, destroyed their ship, and then perhaps they then got eaten by a giant fish. The contrast here would be beautiful. Also, I just gotta say, but if things do play out this way, then it'll be very awkward to see Kid's interaction with Dory and Brogy afterwards. Maybe not though, since the Straw Hats would definitely keep him in check and could even bridge the gap so that Kid doesn't lash out on all the giants once he lands on the island. Another interaction that I believe could be impactful here would be Kid's interaction with Lilith. For quite some time now, there have been many theories that Kid is somehow connected to Dr. Vegapunk. A few reasons for this would be with this whole nomenclature, with all of his attacks having the name Punk within them. And then, there's the fact that when he uses his awakening, his blaster has the number 07 printed on its side, which is reminiscent of the Vegapunks who are numbered 01 through 06. And lastly, the fact that there was a Sea Beast weapon on Egghead Island that not only had the same hair as Kid, but even goggles too. So in this scenario, we could finally put this theory to the test and see if there is some connection between Eustass Kid and Dr. Vegapunk. So now that Kid has been rescued and is arriving on Elbaf with the Straw Hat crew, what awaits him here? Well, not a lot of metal, that's for sure. Minus the armor and gear the giants are sporting, there's not much Kid can magnetize outside of using his awakening. So perhaps this is the perfect chance for him to take some time and train up. And hear me out, we don't have to spend time with Kid while he's doing this. This 100% can be an off-screen event. A lot of side stories and characters move heavily off-screen, so Kid can just be another one of those cases. Kid's development and story doesn't have to come at the cost of panel space and time away from our crew. Kid focusing on training his hockey here on Elbaf could be the play. When you think about it, during Luffy's time skip, after getting that narrator box saying that he lost that fateful day in Sabaody, he then focused on training up his hockey with Rayleigh on an island filled with wild, large animals. Kid got the narrator box just recently, declaring his loss, and now he's stranded on an island with large, wild animals since his ship, the Punk Victoria, is now destroyed. With there seemingly not being a lot of metal on the island for him to manipulate, he'll have to finally hone his hockey. I'll never forget how egregious it was when Kid was touted to have Conqueror's Haki by Kaido, only to never use it once on the rooftop. And then, when Kid saw Luffy use Ryuo, Advanced Armament Haki, his response was, "What the hell is that?" Eustass Kid could go through a much needed advancement here in this arc, on the side, and finally become the pirate he should have been this entire time. If we really wanted to dive in on parallels as well, he could even have a mentor on the subject, like how Luffy had Rayleigh. Many people speculate that the man off the coast of Elbaf could be Shiki, the Golden Lion, or maybe even Scopper Gabbin, another member of the Pirate King's crew. So perhaps they will be the one to train Kid for whatever odd reason. This would further drive home that Kid's journey is just like Luffy's, but a lot more tragic. As far as Kid's future in the story, I'm still undecided on where he'll go from here. With Vegapunk's message echoing throughout the world, he could still want to go after the One Piece and test his luck against Shanks one more time. Or he could find a new purpose and goal while here on Elbaf. Vegapunk did announce that the end of the world is near, and that ancient cities along with weapons exist. So perhaps Kid turns his attention to those areas instead, since if he were to rejoin the race to find the One Piece, he'd be starting from scratch. And hey, we do know, based off of Volume 82's SBS, that one of Kid's favorite hobbies is collecting weapons. So maybe he does go after the ancient weapons because he would really enjoy it. On another end, if Law and Beppo are here on the island, then maybe Kid joins up with them for old time's sake even. In chapter 1056, Kid was the one who first mentioned the man marked by flames, and Law even had a small panel where his eyes were obscured intentionally to perhaps hint that he may have some knowledge on that subject as well. If they work together in this instance, then maybe they could find this mysterious character together. Or on the opposite end, if they give up on their hunt for the One Piece, then this could even be a perfect chance for them to tell Luffy about what little they know about the man marked by flames. With both crews seemingly losing their poneglyphs to Blackbeard and Shanks, maybe they'd want to bet on Luffy's crew and impart whatever knowledge they have. I know it's just a nonsense opening, but it does remind me of Wano's opening song, where we had a visual where Kid and Law both propelled Luffy into the sky. Of course, this was in reference to the fight against Kaido, but maybe it could work symbolically here too, with Kid and Law entrusting the One Piece to Luffy while they go off in a different direction. Another pursuit Kid and Law could tackle together would revolve around the Will of D. Now that the spotlight is being shown on that moniker, this could be a great time to pivot their adventure towards uncovering the truth behind this mystery. The reason Eustass Kid would join this venture would be because he could potentially also be a carrier of the Will of D. An old, popular theory is that Kid's full name is Eustass D. Kid, with the second D being a nod towards his real-life inspiration, Captain Williams Kid, who had 2 D's in his name. This real-life inspiration is actually substantiated in 2 instances. The first being that in SBS 88, Oda mentioned that Kid, if he were from a real-world place, would be from Scotland, which is where the real-life Captain Kid with 2 D's was born. The other instance could be seen back in Udon Prison, where Kid and Killer were put in chains and hanged in reverse, which is known as Anasurushi. The real-life Captain Kid with 2 D's was gibbeted, which is a form of torture in the same genre. If Oda was truly inspired by Captain William Kid with 2 D's, then perhaps Kid will eventually be revealed to be another holder of the D. Let's be real, he'd fit right in with the rest of the crowd, considering his quote, checkered fate thus far. Another reason I believe Kid might make a comeback later in the story has to do with his representative flower that Oda told us about in SBS 95, the tulip. With Imu taking center stage in this final arc, every single detail surrounding this mysterious character means a lot. And, keeping it real, we don't have much to go off on. They're a stocky figure with a 3-pointed crown, and they love flowers and butterflies. The reason I'm bringing Imu up here is because while we don't exactly know what flowers are in their garden room, they do seem to resemble tulips. I mean hell, Imu's head even resembles a tulip too. You might be wondering, how? So, in chapter 151's cover page story, Oda drew a pirate crew called the Tulip Pirates, who all had 3 pointed tulips on their head. This could be what Imu's head looks like if it was unsilhouetted. We do know that this wacky appearance is definitely possible, since we saw this firsthand with Noland and the Mont Blanc family all having chestnuts on their heads. So perhaps Oda does have deep plans for Kid, and this flower, the tulip, is a hint of that. I mean, hey, we've already seen how insane flower representations can be in the story, since Luffy's was said to be a sunflower in volume 95. And then, just 8 volumes later, he's revealed to be the sun god. So there could be something here with Kid as well. And another interesting flower motif to bring in would be Law's, since his flower is the Queen of the Night. You might be wondering why I'm giving Kid so much hype, and I personally don't think I am. I'm just trying to find out interesting ways to tie Kid back into the story that would make sense, which is why I touch on so many different routes, no diddy. Many people do not believe that Kid is in the Great Beyond, and if that's the case, then he's gotta play some role. But hey, those are just my own personal thoughts and opinions on Captain Eustass Kid. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Do you want to see more of Eustass Kid in the future? Do you think he'll play a pivotal role? Or no, are you sick of Captain Kid still, even after this video? And I'm gonna be quite honest, I do think that is a very valid opinion to have. Captain Kid is the captain of failed promises, the captain of failed potential, the captain of failed fights, and I can see why a lot of people don't like him. But let's be for real for a minute. I'm not saying this as a diss, but this is One Piece. Characters don't die that often. They do die, don't get me wrong, but whenever characters die, I feel like Oda always lets us visit their grave, or he really clarifies that they are 100% dead. For Kid and his crew, getting that narrator box saying that they've been annihilated or defeated isn't exactly the same as Kid being dead forever. And when it comes to characters surviving situations like this, Oda plays to its strengths, right? He wants characters to grow, he wants characters to show up for the final feast and the final battle, and I think Kid has a seat at that table. One thing I do want to mention, since we're at the end of the video, but I mentioned Kid's flower being a tulip, and I didn't really expand on how that would be important in the future, and I just wanted to clarify real quick that I'm not saying he's going to become Sun God Jika because his flower is a tulip. That was simply me saying that, hey, you know, there's some weird connections here, right? If Luffy's flower means something, then maybe Kid's flower could be symbolic of who his Void Century counterpart is. You know, maybe we'll meet a Eustass person in the past. Maybe they're also a rival or co-conspirator with Joy Boy. I think we'll see a lot of shenanigans like that when we hit that Void Century flashback, and if he is a member of the D clan. But yes, with that being said, that's enough of my silly theories. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all of this down below. What are your own personal theories about Kid, and do you even want to see him? But yeah, with that being said though, thank you so much for watching. My name is Sai, and I'm signing out. Peace.